While I'm doing a doll project, I thought it was a great time to show you how to cut paint lines. Now, this can work for dollhouse stuff and for real house stuff. Now, I usually do it and used to do it with a big brush when I had my house painting business. This wall and ceiling example is my real house, and now I'm going to switch to a small brush and show you a better example of how to do it, which seems a little less intimidating. I was being myself and working on a project to refab a cabinet into a display case, totally make it different, paint it black and white. I had done this line and I thought, here's a perfect chance to show you and anybody who might need it an easy way and an easy explanation for how to cut paint lines. So first and foremost, now again, as I said, we're into a small brush. An angled brush is what I highly suggest as the most important thing. Don't be afraid to buy a good brush because you can clean it and reuse it for years and years. That one you've seen in the beginning, I've had that for 10 years. We have to dip your brush halfway and kind of shake off the excess. You don't really try to drag it on the side of the can too much because you need that point to have some liquid, some paint. And here you can see all you do is press that little bitty point with the full paint, load it on right up into the corner. Take a few minutes to work this corner. That's the most important part of it all, is making sure that corner meets. When I was a painter, you never messed up those points because nobody looks at the full line all the time. They're always looking at the corner. So once you've done that, now you can see all you have to do is drag the point. And that is why I like angled brushes the most. It's just easier. Now you're always fanning, and see if I had a little extra paint on there, it's just natural to me that I might press a little bit off first, and then I'm going to go the opposite way using my angle brush and do the same thing and then fan it off. So again, you're just using that point. You can find by using the right side or the left side of these examples which way you prefer to use your angle brush because everybody has a different feel. But as long as you keep your hand angled and let that point do all the work, you don't force it. Go practice somewhere and just let it fall into the crack between the ceiling and the wall. And later, this even is handy when you do the trim. As I noted in the beginning, at all times, pay attention also to the angle of my hand. That is on an angle too. Second coat, after it's dry, let me show you the most important key. The second coat is only 1/8 or 1/16 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, whatever you see here, down below the original cut line. So you put all the energy into the first cut line. Then when you're doing the second coat, so now I'm actually doing the second coat of paint on top of the first coat of paint instead of showing you like I did, dip, like I showed you earlier too. Now, one hand is a little hard. See over there, it went down just a 1/8, a 1/4 away. Here we do the same thing. So that's the trick. That point left you a nice thick line when you did that original first cut line. So your second one is not too hard because you're not actually touching that first line. You're just filling it in to make it dark. And then of course you feather it, so when you come along and roll, all of this is going to meld together and look really, really beautiful and the way it should be. Here is another example just to show you again. You can go really fast on the second coat because you're not touching anywhere near where you already have. Pretty simple, right? And now you can see that it's thick enough and ready for rolling. I must have been on a roll here. Now I'm just painting. I'm showing you. Again, this is the little brush. The big brush has the same exact concept. Angle your hand, use the angle brush, angle it in, feather. Easy peasy. So now we can quickly talk about rolling because sometimes you need to do that. Here's a tip I like to do, especially when I use these small Wonder Rollers here. Handy dandy to cover it up with a grocery bag to use as a liner. I do this all the time. I also do that on larger rollers, just using a small trash bag. Easy peasy cleanup. I've had that tray forever. Here I was taking a minute to show you actual rollers, more as a note in conjunction to the project I am doing with painting a piece of furniture. I prefer that one right there with the nap as opposed to the foam because you can get all into the cracks and corners of things much easier than you can with the foam. The foam gives a nice the way its sheen is and the way its texture is, but the nap style just beats it for ease of coverage. Now for rolling, let's pretend we have a huge home wall. We don't, but here we are. Take your roller and just work it off your tray a little bit to get some of the excess. But of course you want to leave some paint on. Make a W. That's the best and easiest way to do it. Do your paint, your W, and most important is to back roll. Back rolling, and what I mean by that is going back over it like I've shown, is what makes your painted wall and surface look good, solid, and get the best coverage of the paint. Now, in conjunction with the project I'm doing, I told you about these little whiz and wonder rollers. Why I like the napped ones better? Look at what you can do in the corners and crevices with this kind of brush. Let me tell you how this applies to painting your home. Just think porches and railings and all the little slots and slats. Yeah, these things, take note, are very, very cool. And easy to handle, easy to clean, and all that good stuff like that. They hold a lot more paint and foam too. I find that that is a plus about them as well. Notice how far that loaded brush went. Now let's recap what I showed you in the beginning using everything I showed you. First here I did the faux wall so I could slop it anywhere and it did not matter. Just kind of seeing it from a different angle. I did the wall first as if that were the ceiling color, and then I did the ceiling in the cut around the faux, and then thirdly I did the normal beige colored wall here in that order. That's how you get something like that. How this all pertains to cutting trim is very simple. You just paint your wall as if it were the ceiling that I showed you earlier, and it doesn't matter if you touch your trim a little bit. If you have darker colors and you're gonna have a contrast that's heavy duty, you wanna be careful. But when it comes down to it, when you do your trim, it's the same as what I showed you earlier doing the wall, in that you load your pointed angle, put your hand in an angle, and then just let the tip do all the work. That tip in a nice brush will fall right into that crack and crevice perfectly to give you a really wonderful trim line. And then of course you just feather the rest of your door jamb or floorboards if you happen to be doing that. Now the same as before with the second coat, it's really simple. Just stay about 1/4 of an inch away from your original line. And that is how you do a wonderful trim line like that. So now let's take a second and let me tell you just some masking tips. I don't particularly love to do masking tape on walls, but if you have to, it applies just the same. Most important is when you lay it down, you absolutely take the time to press it nice and hard. I like to do a little tab like that so I can pull it off easily. Anything you don't press down is going to have slop under it, so just keep that in mind. It is also one of the reasons I'm not fond of using masking tape on walls, because inevitably you spend more time getting it ready and prepped. But if you have to use it like a situation like this, here you go. When you're painting, do not press your brush into the tape. Feather it and work it away from the tape. You're just not taking the chance here to get some paint under there and not make your lines real pretty. Again, it takes time, but sometimes you have to do it in a project like this where you need a straight line, or say you were doing a half, 2 different colors in a wall, you'd need that line perfect. So that's why you keep it away from the masking tape, all the paint. Now when it comes time to pull it, here's the most important trick that most people don't realize. You have to pull the tape when it's still damp. Not sopping wet, but damp. You do not want a skin to build between your area painted and the masking tape. As well, take your little tab and pull it at a really heavy angle like this, and then pull away. That while it's wet, that's most important, while it's wet, because then you won't have that skin. All problems have always happened with people with masking tape because they waited too long, or it was dry and then it just slops and messes. Here you see black and white is very drastically different, so it shows, yeah, there is little mistakes there, but those are easy to touch up. And if this was a lighter color difference, trust me, you would not even notice. If this was white next to beige, you wouldn't even see that. You wouldn't have to touch up. That's nice and neat. Let it dry, and there you have masking tape tips. Remember, in any project you do, even if it's a house project and you have to do touch-ups, don't be afraid to pull out a little artist brush and just touch it up. It can make the difference between an awesome project and not. Here's the end result. If you were wondering for the project I was working on, here is how it turned out. Those lines using an angled brush all came in handy, and the same techniques for doing around this window glass and for doing the hand pulls. It all comes together. The same techniques are used for full house and home and walls and ceilings and trim, and doing a cabinet such as this. Hope you've enjoyed this. Hope it's been a help. Don't forget to give it a good thumbs up, and happy painting. Dee-dee.